Oh, okay. Okay, good. All right. You got it right in front of you?
Yeah. I still need to add in my pictures and stuff and change some things, but for the most part, I like have activities. So I'm doing my one activity. I'm doing these like I printed it all out, but I don't have it with me. Um, like this investigation thing. So like they have like
Mhm.
a problem, and then they have two detectives, and then they have to solve it themselves, and then decide which detective is right and explain why they're right, and then what
Mhm.
mistake the other detective made.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. It
Yeah,
sounded
so it's a little bit
good.
more interactive than my usual. Just here's some worksheets, do these.
Good, 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 good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you get all that extra stuff added in, that's fine. Just so it's added in before you turn it into chalk and wire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's get started. For your pre-observation conference for your last lesson.
I know it's crazy.
Yeah, it does sound crazy. Um, so were you able to hear back from your cooperating teacher on anything, or what
She
did you
doesn't
guys
really
discuss?
she doesn't ever respond.
Okay, I
And
get
then I
that a
get to
lot.
class and she says, "Sorry, I didn't respond." I say, "It's okay."
Okay,
I think she's
okay.
just very pregnant, dealing with being pregnant, having a 2-year-old at home, having her class. She's got a lot going on in her life.
It is a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah, and we talked about some things, and you're going to finalize those and get those turned in.
absolutely.
Good. Okay. What was the student data or conversations that you used for the development of this lesson?
So students have been doing this for a while now. They're just kind of like, this is all they really have left to do. So they've been doing this for a while. Last week we did, um, just basically we had like problems, and they would do an addition, a subtraction, a multiplication, and a division problem just to make sure that they knew how to do the operations. You'd be surprised how many of them forgot how to add, apparently.
Yeah.
Like we would get like 60% of the people would get the addition problem right. So like struggling with addition again, but
Yeah.
we took that data, and I know like they struggle more so with multiplication and division. So I'm gonna start off with like more addition and subtraction, then move into multiplication and division. So we're kind of getting more difficult as we go on.
Okay. So you're scaffolding this lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, that's also differentiation for those that need that extra
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
bottom, or it's firming up the foundation for
Mm-hmm.
those that already have it. Um, Number 3, what do you want your students to learn from this lesson? How did you prepare for it? And what's the content?
I just want them to learn basically that like problems don't, like the main idea they need to get from this is like problems don't always just like just because you add in the beginning means you add all throughout. Like they need to understand like you can have to go from adding to subtracting to multiplying to dividing, like and
Mm-hmm.
multiple operations can be used in the same problem to still get the same answer. And like also identifying what they're looking for, because a lot of times it'll be like, okay, so they have this many apples, they get this many more apples, and then they give away this many from those combined, but they'll just like add the first two numbers and have that as their answer, and then they like
That's
they
it.
get one number and they just stop doing the problem, where like they
Mm-hmm.
need to know like you have to keep going through.
Yeah, that's important. I forgot the letters right now, but you have them circle or highlight all the different numbers and
Yeah,
what
so
keep
we're
them
going to do that
going.
first to go through it.
Yeah. Now, do you require them to write their answers in a sentence or a couple of sentence form when there's more than one? Usually
Yeah, so
for
they,
word problems, they
when they
do.
do solve for like their answer, they have to like discuss like what they solved for, so that they're not just like, okay, I know the math, like you have to actually understand the problem as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
like, oh, they have this many apples left, or blah 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 blah, like explaining what it means.
Yeah, they definitely need to put an explanation, not just a number,
Mm-hmm.
when it's asking them a specific question.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the key concepts that you want your students to pull from this lesson. It's almost the same as the other question, but
Yeah, they just basically, the key concepts are like addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction, and how to solve multi-step word problems.
mm-hmm. So you want them to read it, comprehend it, and follow through all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Identify the essential and supporting grade level standards addressed in your lesson plans and how you're integrating standards from other subjects.
So this also integrates English because it's word problems, so they'll be reading and comprehending that, and then writing the responses in sentence forms.
Good. Okay, number 6. Discuss what you've learned from your Florida Southern classes that's helped you prepare for this particular lesson.
I learned when I took math class about like doing things like that aren't just worksheets and like making sure the kids are involved and having fun, and also like starting simpler. So like what the first problem we're gonna do is gonna be like just a single step word problem so that they remember how to do word problems before we move into multi-step and
It's
like breaking
always
things down.
important to go back and remind and rebuild.
Hmm.
And they'll give you an answer if you need to stay there for a while, if you can move on real fast
Yeah,
from
exactly.
your
That's like
observation.
in my lesson I wrote during the instruction time, like just to add more problems as necessary.
Right. Explain how you will unpack the standard and how you're going to verbalize the big idea for the day in student-friendly language.
So basically just break down like, all right, today we're going to be doing problems and we're going to be using all the operations, like multiplication, addition, subtraction, not just like all the operations, but explaining what the operations are, like what multi-step word problems mean and how we're going to go through multiple plays, and then breaking it down and showing them like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And then also like showing them cubes in the beginning to make sure they are understanding what they're doing with the problems.
Good. Explain how the objective will be displayed throughout the lesson in kid-friendly language so that they can refer back to it. Maybe it's just the cubes or maybe it's something else you're going to
Yeah,
have.
I'm gonna write the cubes on the board and also just write the objective on the board, and like before we go into everything, tell them like, okay, we're doing this in order to practice this, so that they don't just think I'm giving them busy work, like they understand that there is a meaning behind the work I'm giving them.
Right. And it's something they can refer back to. And sometimes if they ask a question, all you need to do is just go up there and point.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just as a reminder for them. Okay, number 9. This is about the assessment and the learning targets and how do you plan to get evidence that they're doing okay?
So my evidence is gonna come from taking the detective things back, also through like just looking at their whiteboard so I can quickly differentiate or like quickly help, like for example during instruction, like if I see like, okay, we're still struggling, like adding more problems immediately during instruction, so we're immediately tackling it as a group, not just moving on and letting them go into their small groups or going individually if they're not prepared to go there yet.
Yeah. Did you ever learn something wrong when you were in school and you learned it so well and then the next day you found out, why
Yeah.
didn't they straighten me out in the beginning? So
Yeah,
that's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I hated that. I thought I had it and something I missed. So that's good that you're going to make sure that they're learning it correctly right from the beginning. That's good feedback. Examine the materials that you're going to be using to teach this critical content and tell me a little bit about what you think the rigor will be once they get going.
I'm gonna have a PowerPoint to like go through everything, show them like images, definitely using images to like connect things visually. I think that they'll enjoy this, so I think that it will be a little bit easier because they enjoy it rather than like if you give it to them in a format they don't really enjoy, it's a little bit more difficult because they don't try their best. Also, I think this week will be very interesting because I'm teaching my first class, which usually I've done my second class in the past.
That's right.
My first class is a lot quieter than my second class, you will see. They don't talk very much, but I'm hoping that because I'm teaching, it'll keep them involved and engaged. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
My third class would ideally be a class I would love to teach, but I always usually teach during seminar week, so it just hasn't worked out that way, but I'm excited for my first class, and I think it'll be good to see.
We'll see how they interact. That will be interesting.
Yeah, because my second class definitely has a lot of highs and a lot of lows, or my first class has a lot of like in the middle, like they're the most like steady, I would say, amongst their group.
Okay.
So we'll see.
We'll see how they do first thing in the morning with
I know.
Miss Julia teaching them.
In the morning.
That's going to be good. I know you have several instructional strategies that you're going to do that are aligned to objective. Tell me about some of them and how you're going to give feedback, your questioning, your differentiation, your assessments, and engaging the learners.
So as far as like differentiation goes, I do have differentiation, but also my low students in my first class also leave to go with the interventionist during my lesson. So like they won't really be there to need like the extra differentiation. And they go for the beginning of the class, and then for the ending half of the class, she comes into the classroom, I believe.
Okay.
So she'll also be there to help me. I want to make sure that like if some of my kids I know are not going to understand the multi-step, just like giving them two single step, but they like connect to each other. So therefore they're
Mhm.
solving the one single step, solving the other single step, and then they can connect those back to each other rather than just giving it to them as one whole problem and then being like, I have no idea where to begin with this. Also, I think that breaking it down and giving them cues in the beginning so they understand, like, okay, we're going to circle, we're going to underline, we're going to box, like doing that as a group so everybody's kind of doing the same process. And then also emphasizing the fact that, like, okay, you understand how to do the process. If you don't need to do that process to understand the problem, you don't have to go through it. Because I don't want, like, my super advanced kids to be going through that and just, like, thinking it's busy work. Like, let's just circle. Like, if you don't have to do it to solve it, you don't have to do that every single time.
And that's, like you said, from your perception as you're walking around, you'll see which ones need that chunking more than the others, and the other ones that you could just let go.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you are doing things different for the different students,
Mhm.
especially in your response to them.
Yes.
What adaptations will you be making for remediation for those we just talked about, or extension for any of the higher groups?
So for remediation, I want to go back and kind of just refocus on, like, okay, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So I do understand the difference between them, because I think often they'll be in the middle of a problem and just get confused and think you have to keep going. So, like, look at, like, okay, like not necessarily like keywords, because keywords don't always mean operations, but at
Mhm.
the same time, keywords that will, like, help them, like, okay, this is how you pick out what operation to do, and just go back through, like, analyzing the problem before solving it and making sure they really understand, like, the steps of breaking it down. Because I think often they just focus on, okay, let's just solve, but in order to solve, you have to be able to break down the problem and understand what you're doing.
Somewhere in your plans, I forget where exactly, but you're going to have some of the students make up their own problems.
Mm-hmm.
I liked that.
Yeah, so that'll
You will
help a
really
little
see if
more.
they understand it and if they can add the multiple steps.
Yeah, exactly.
That's real good. So for your action plan, I didn't pull it out in front of me. What are you doing this time to work on that?
We're working on classroom management this time, which I said classroom management because last time I was in my second class and they were loud and obnoxious and it was very difficult. This class is a very different dynamic, so I think it'll be not necessarily easier, but a little bit easier to handle them because they aren't as loud. But I think last time, where it was more so quieting them down, this time it'll be more so trying to get them to participate. I
That's
think it's
what
going
I
to be
was
completely
thinking.
looking at it from the opposite side. So that's something
Yeah,
I really do want to focus on.
definitely. So it's still classroom management, trying to get them
Just
involved, and
basically the opposite of the last time I was here.
that's so true. So that's a good thing that you're going to experience both of those.
Yeah.
Okay, number 14 is for me. I'll answer that in a few minutes and
Okay.
get it back to you. And I look forward to 8:15 in the
Yeah,
morning,
I know it's gonna be
seeing
early. Gotta wake them
you,
up.
that's what you're going to do. No
Exactly.
problem. All
All
right,
right.
remember
Thank
to
you.
slow
Bye.
down your lesson delivery.
I'm going to. I'm gonna talk
Write
slow.
yourself some notes.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Okay,
Goodbye.
talk
I'll
to
see
you
you tomorrow
tomorrow.
morning. Thank you.
Bye-bye.